Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Just One More Level podcast. I am your co-host, Christian.
And I am your co-host, John.
And this week we played a little bit of Fallout 3.
Yes. Yes,
You
we did.
seem excited. So Fallout 3, you never played it until now, right?
No, I've never played Fallout. I've never played any of the Fallout games until we played them for the podcast.
Right.
So
Right, which we
I
started with Fallout
was
1, but that's
right.
completely different. Like,
It
not even close.
no, it's not even close to this. I mean, it is close to this in concept and in world.
Well,
And
yeah, the world is all based off the same thing and whatnot, of course, but
Right.
gameplay-wise, it's just completely different. Now, you've
Yeah.
played other Bethesda games, though, right? Like Skyrim?
Kind of.
Kind of? Okay, so this is
Yeah.
kind of your introduction to Bethesda then.
This is. Yes.
Awesome.
I played the first 40 minutes of Skyrim, which for the uninitiated is pretty much just the setup of your character.
Yeah, you ride in, you get
Yeah,
attacked by a
I've seen
dragon.
the meme. I've seen the meme. The meme,
Yeah,
you wake up in the hay ride,
you
and
just wake up
like
in the hay one day and
you wake up in the hay, and the guy says, "Good, you're awake." Because of just the way that starts out, it's funny to everybody. But
I think it's just, I mean, we're getting off rails, but I think it's just
yeah,
because like if you play Skyrim a lot, you just have to deal with that stupid intro over and over and over again, and it just gets old real
yeah,
quick. I think that's why everybody memed it. But anyways,
yeah,
Fallout 3 though, completely different. The intro for
yes.
Fallout 3, just because I've played it so many times, I find a little bit bland, but I
I
like
didn't
it
think it
so
was
much more than
cool.
Skyrim.
Yeah, I didn't think it was as cool as the intro for the first game, honestly. I think the intro for the first game is better, honestly. But here's what I thought about this game. Strangely enough, this would be a good first Fallout game.
Yeah, yeah,
This
very
would
much
be a
so.
good first introduction to the world.
And
In the first Fallout game, I felt too immobilized by the fact that I didn't know how to play the game. Like I didn't know how to play that kind of game. I didn't understand the controls or how I should move the character. So I had to read a reference guide, and then I had to have that reference guide handy while I was playing the game as a companion text, and I could barely get into it at all because I was completely inhibited by not knowing how to play that kind of game. Just a product of its time. It was very good for its time, and it's still very well constructed. But
yeah, well,
this
and
was much
there
more
are,
accessible to me.
just to be fair, there are other games that are made in that same style that control very similarly as well. It's
Mm,
just that's a very computer type of game, and you're newer
yes,
to computer games. And
yes,
nowadays, most games that people play on their computer are also made for consoles, so they have extra
right.
features built into them to make that possible, which then makes it more accessible to people who grew up playing on consoles and only consoles. But
Mm,
just to be fair, there are other CRPGs that work a lot like Fallout, and honestly, I think the original Fallout still holds up very well from a control standpoint. But
I was
with
able to
that
get
said,
used to it. Yeah.
yes, well, and with that said, though, I 100% understand what you mean, and I believe that was a thing that Bethesda was specifically going for, like something they were trying to do with this update, not only
Hmm.
by turning it into a more action oriented shooter RPG, but
Hmm.
also making it more accessible to a wider audience. So no longer is it a PC, computer RPG, it's now a action RPG, first person shooter RPG that you can play on every console out there, your PC, whatever you want to do with it. And
Right.
Bethesda, in my opinion, just create worlds like no one else. Like I honestly don't think there's anybody else who creates better worlds to just play in than Bethesda does, just full of little interesting things. And
Right.
so them taking the existing world of Fallout and kind of giving it their own twist and coming up with this product, I I adore it. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I definitely agree that it's a great introduction to the Fallout series.
This guy,
Quite
by the
possibly,
way,
yeah,
I'm just
your
looking at
father,
his beady little eyes.
yeah.
That's what
um,
I noticed the whole time.
but yeah, quite possibly a better introduction to the Fallout universe than Fallout. in
Yes.
my personal opinion, which is odd coming from me because I'm usually the type of person that wants to play everything in order. But
Hmm.
I think Fallout 3 is just a great introduction. I agree 100%.
Yeah. That's how I felt the whole time I was playing it, especially since in the original Fallout, I had no idea what my stats meant or how they affected my player character, just
Okay.
because I'm new to RPGs. I
Yeah.
understand the meaning of those words. I understand what strength and perception are,
Hmm.
but I didn't know how that was going to relate to my gameplay. Like
Right.
what was that going to do when I encounter an enemy or when I am trying to do a task?
Hmm.
Um, but this game, when you start going through it, it takes you through your entire life up to the point where you, spoilers, leave the vault and
I don't I
enter
don't
the
know if that's much
wasteland.
of a spoiler these days, but yeah,
Spoiler.
yeah.
It took me
Um,
like an hour and 20 minutes to get there, so
well, I'm glad that
spoilers.
you did make it out though, because one of
Yeah.
the other things that I really love about Bethesda games is
Hmm.
that they tend to do a big reveal moment. And
Uh,
with Fallout 3, the big reveal moment obviously is whenever you first leave the vault and everything's like white because the sun's so bright, your first time ever in daylight. And then you get
hmm.
out there and you just see this wasteland in front of you coming from inside this vault where everything's mostly pristine, kind of
Hmm.
old looking, run down a little bit, but
Hmm.
still, very shiny, very clean comparatively. And
Right.
then you step out into the wide world and it's just dead trees everywhere, lots of brown, some slight shades of green, just junk piles that pass for cities off in the distance, and it's
Right.
an
Yeah.
incredible reveal, and it's
Yeah.
something that will always be burned into my mind. Is just every Fallout game, well, Fallout 3 and 4 at least. Whenever
Hmm.
you first step out into the new world.
Nice. Yeah. It's very. I had a lot of fun with just exploring and
Yeah.
taking my time. Going back to the special stats, if you're watching the video stream, you'll see this moment in the stream. Um, you're introduced to what those mean in this game by reading a children's book.
Hmm.
You come across a children's book and they give you little rhymes for special, and they spell out what all of those mean. And let me see if I can remember. Strength, perception, endurance. C is for
Charisma.
charisma, intelligence, agility, and liability, luck.
Luck. There you go.
Yeah,
Yep.
luck. That's what that means. Which luck is something that I started to lean towards. I leaned towards luck a lot more, and
Hmm.
charisma. I like, and
See,
intelligence.
growing
I really
up,
like that.
I had basically the same build that you're talking about.
Uh,
But I've come to learn, and it's one unfortunate thing with most Fallout games.
uh-huh.
Charisma ends up not being that useful
Really?
in most of the games,
Mm-hmm.
because there's not a whole lot of checks that go off of it, and then you can increase it later if you need to, whether it's through, taking certain chems or by increasing certain skills later on or whatever. But intelligence, very important. You always want to
Mm-hmm.
have that at a 9 because that dictates how much points you get every time you level up to put into skills later on.
Really?
So yeah, so that's just the
Gotcha.
pro strats that most people know, but new players like yourself that will may help them out. And then luck has a lot to do with your crits and stuff like that. So if you're playing like a sneaky crit type of build, then you definitely want to have high luck.
I don't
But
know
it's
what
just a
that
lot of
is,
fun. Oh,
but
so a sneaky crit type of
that
build?
sounds pretty.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that that means that you sneak up on people and get critical hits the first time.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Basically, you want to get as many critical hits as you can. And
Okay.
sneaking gives you guaranteed crits, basically.
You're
But you
right.
can also get
Okay.
crits just
I was
randomly and
just
whatnot, and having your luck modifier increase gives
I
you
was
a
just
better
making
chance of
sure
that.
because it sounded like you were using a slur, and I was like, Christian.
Them sneaky crits, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no.
Christian.
So I mean, we're getting a little deep into the mechanics, but I
Yeah, but that's part of the fun that I was really having with this game that I wasn't expecting, because when you said the game transitions away from being so heavy into RPG and becomes much more action oriented,
mhm.
I thought of something totally different. I thought that it was going to get rid of a lot of the things that make an RPG, and it was going to turn into something like the rebooted Tomb Raider.
Oh yeah, no,
How
no.
in the rebooted Tomb Raider, the gameplay is completely action focused, but you have RPG elements going on. Like you can upgrade your weapons and you can put skills into a sort of skill tree, a skill timeline. Actually, is more like what it is in
Yeah.
Tomb Raider. But um, that's what I was imagining. So when I got into it, and it was just kind of easy to move around gameplay, but it was really immersed in the RPG stuff. You know, it you had your nine or however many. How does math work? Eight letters, eight stats.
Seven,
And
I
then
think, but yeah.
seven. That's fine. Yeah, it's fine. I can math. I can math. It's fine. And then you have all of your other points, and they play off of each other. Because when
Mhm.
I leveled up coincidentally, I think it might be meant to be this way, but I leveled up when I got out of the vault and when I got into the wasteland.
Yeah.
As soon as I made it into the wasteland, it was boom, level 2. So I don't know if they give you an XP dump at the door to make sure you level up
I'm
when that
pretty sure
happens,
they do. Yeah, at least
but
every run I've done, I'm pretty sure I leveled up at right after
right
leaving
there.
the vault as well. So yeah.
Right there. Yeah. So I leveled up right there and I was reading all of the different points that you can have in addition to your skills, or your stats. I'm not sure if I'm using all the vocabulary right,
Yeah,
but
it's fine.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um, you get points for your special, and then you get points for all of your other things that relate to your special.
Yeah. For anybody
Um,
who's never played, special is like the skills
the
that you get
acronym.
at the beginning, the attributes that you get right at the beginning, and
Yes.
you don't get to change those later in the game unless you take specific perks, which are unlockable abilities every level, or if
Yes.
through certain in-game events. But every
Hmm.
time you level up, you get points for skills. Skills are your more fine-tuned stuff, like how well you handle guns, how well you can lockpick doors, hack computers,
Right.
how well you can barter, things like that. So,
Right. And that's what I was trying to say there. Yeah, your
yeah.
perks and your actual skills,
Hmm.
like heavy machine guns and
Yeah.
weaponry and things like that. Um, so the faces in this game though, Christian, are
Yeah.
ooh,
Well, I mean, the game is quite old at this point. I
it is
don't
quite old,
remember
so it gets
exactly
a
when it came out,
pass.
like
Yeah,
2009,
sure,
give or take.
sounds about right.
So
This is definitely
it's
PS3 era. This isn't PS2, but
yeah, no, this was a
that's how I
PS3 game,
define.
but
I don't define games in the actual names of the generation. Like
right.
I would not say fifth or sixth generation. I would say PS2 or PS3.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. But
it's just
yeah,
how
no,
I
I mean,
think.
so like it still has a lot of RPG elements.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. It's just not as role play as the other ones are. But Bethesda, in my opinion, does a really good job of making games open to a broader audience without completely alienating their old audience. Now,
Yeah.
that may be a controversial statement for some because like Skyrim was so much more dumbed down than Oblivion or Morrowind was. Um, and Fallout 4 is a little bit more dumbed down than 3, although not as much. So I don't want to stick up them for too much in that regard, but I do agree
Yeah.
that Fallout 3 is still a very good RPG game. It's not just a good action game.
Right.
Now, funnily enough, though, they did screw up a lot of the actual first person shooter elements.
Yeah.
And I understand that there were struggles on how do you get better shooting a gun without increasing your real world skill, but through in-game points.
Okay.
And so they did what they could to make that better, to make it RPG like. And I mean, I think the end result ended up being okay, but if we continue this series and you end up playing Fallout New Vegas or Fallout 4, you'll see
Okay.
that it gets much better later on. The gunplay does, to the point to where some people feel like Fallout 4 is more of a first person shooter than anything else.
Okay.
But it's just it's weird because they use the same engine for all their games. That's just how Bethesda works. So
Okay.
Fallout 3 uses the same exact engine that Oblivion did, which obviously is a completely different game with no sense of guns or anything like that. And if I remember
Gotcha.
correctly from what I've seen in documentaries in the past, how they made guns actually work was they just treated the gun basically like a staff and the
Okay.
bullet like a magic projectile, just one that happens to be moving very fast, basically.
Okay.
So you're
Okay. I can see
basically
it.
every time you shoot a gun, you're casting a spell. Essentially, is
Okay.
how they worked it into their engine to get it to work. And then because of all the complaints with the gunplay not being quite up to snuff, they retooled their engine for Fallout 4 and
Hmm.
made it much nicer from a shooter standpoint. Um,
Okay.
so
So I wanted to get into a little bit of talk in this game that we didn't get into in the first one because the first one was very introduction heavy, right? This is a franchise that we're venturing into, and
yeah,
eventually, once we cover enough sequels of some of these franchise games, we might fool around with making some playlists of franchises. So you'll be seeing this one potentially right after the first one, maybe just in your recommended videos.
right.
So I'd like to get into it here. I have heard tell around the campfire. Um the Fallout games, these vaults that they take place in. Now, Christian, I'm new to all of this.
Yeah,
I see the overseer as just a general kind of jerk, right? He's running this place, but yeah, he's kind of skeevy. He's got something to hide. You're getting a sense of that from the first hour of this game. Um, you yourself, your dad is some kind of doctor, I think. He's either
yeah.
the medical doctor or a scientist in the vault.
That's
Um,
complicated, but you
okay,
don't figure out
okay,
how complicated until much later on. So,
okay. So, first hour impressions. He's either a medical doctor because he gives you an exam later on,
yeah.
and then he's also some kind of scientist. He works down in the reactor with his bro. I forget his name. Jonas, Jonah,
That sounds right.
some
Yeah.
something like
Jonah.
that.
I think it's Jonah.
Um, so he's working down there with his bro, and he apparently someday after you become an adult and you get your first job, your first real job in the vault, you your dad escapes. He dips. His bro dies. He's killed,
Well, I was
and
gonna say killed more than dies. Yeah.
yeah, and they're all on the hunt for you. So you have to escape, and your main squeeze, trying to use 50s lingo here, Amada, she comes and tells you that you gotta go. You
Mhm.
have to leave now because they're after you. You are your father's son, apparently. I don't know what you did because in my playthrough, I don't know how you scored on your what are they? Your goats?
Yeah.
Your goat. I don't know how you scored on the goat, but I scored as a kitchen cook. He told me I'd be a cook in the kitchen, and then I
I
could
don't
change.
remember. To be honest, most of the time I just don't take the goat, but I decided to go ahead and sit down and take it for this playthrough.
I didn't even know that was
And
an option.
sadly, yeah,
Okay.
if you select the right string of dialogue options, you just don't have to do it. He'll just let you pick whatever you want and then leave. But anyways, but
Okay.
I even though I did sit down to do it this time, I don't remember what I got. But
Um. Yeah.
oh
So
well.
I got kitchen cook, and then
Mhm.
I could pick. You can pick skills
Yeah.
after the test. Is what it's a
Well,
framing device to let you pick skills
yeah,
going into the
it
future.
pre-picks ones for you based off of what you score on your test. Because
Right.
basically, they're asking you questions to get an idea of how you might want to play this game. And then
Yeah.
they're giving you three choices that they think will most help your playthrough of this game, help you enjoy this playthrough of the
Right.
game. But
And
of
it's a
course,
brilliant way to frame that too,
yes, I
because
agree.
it's following you through your adolescence and into your adulthood.
Hmm.
And we all know, especially in a politically corrupt world, standardized testing is a part of adolescence.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what we got going on here. But going into what I have here, okay? Oh,
Hmm.
the third camera angle, by the way, absolute trash. I couldn't stand it for a
The third
second.
person camera angle, you mean?
Yes, the third
Yeah,
person
some
camera angle.
people actually prefer playing that way, and
For
I
what
understand
reason?
that it gives you more view of what's going on around you. So it gives you, technically, it gives you an advantage in
I
like
guess, but
combat and things like
why
that. But I agree,
on earth?
it's
Why are
trash.
you not in the middle though?
Yeah. Well,
You're
because it's an
locked
over
to
the shoulder
the
view. You want it to
that
be over a shoulder view in third person. Because if it's not, then your character model's blocking too much of the screen. That's the same for pretty much every modern third person game. You're off to the
it's
side.
it's worse in this game though. It's
I.
not the same. You're locked to like an extreme. You're all the way over though, and it moves around you in a weird way. It's weird.
Huh.
I don't like
You know,
it. I don't like
honestly,
the way it's handled.
I've never had an issue
You've never noticed that?
with it like that. No, I mean, it just
Please back
feels
me up in the
it.
comments if you guys know what I'm talking about. Oh my god, I feel like I'm going crazy.
It
Amber
just. I
noticed
mean,
it immediately when I was
it
playing
just
the game and she was
feels
watching me and I
like.
switched. She was like, "Oh wow, why are you all the way over there?"
I don't know. It just feels like a normal third person camera to me. Like I can
Oh,
I can agree that maybe it's a little bit wider, but
yeah,
I don't know, maybe it's because I've played so many Bethesda games and
maybe.
so that's
Yeah.
just, how it is.
Yeah, and
Um
if you like
but
it, I'm not going to tell you that
but
you're
no,
a
I
bad
still think
person,
the
but
first person view's a lot better. Don't get me
oh,
wrong.
okay. Gotcha.
But I never thought the third person view was bad though.
Yeah, okay. I see.
Just not the option for me or yeah, most people I know. But yeah, no, that's interesting. Okay.
My.
Anyways,
Okay. But yeah, so anyways, you're in a vault.
yep,
And this vault was built by Vault Tech,
yep,
whatever it's called, Vault Tech. Okay.
yep,
And they made a lot of them, obviously, because you live in Vault 101, right?
yeah.
I forget which vault you're from in the first game. It's 70 something, isn't it?
I don't
I don't
remember
remember.
off the top of my head, but there's a
Um,
bunch of vaults, a
there's a
bunch.
bunch. So
Yeah.
I can recall something from my youth that this vault is a very vanilla sort of experience for you.
Hmm.
Um, not all the vaults were like this, from what I'm
Definitely not.
hearing. Yes, and I haven't looked too much into it. I just remember people talking about it like at school, and they
Yeah.
would talk about like, did you hear the theory about what went on and vault this number and vault this number? And I think this character belonged to this vault. And I was just like, oh. So I'm
Yeah.
guessing that you lucked out. Uh, there
Again,
were some terrible vaults.
it gets complicated, and I don't want to
Yeah,
spoil anything for
sure,
the
that's fair.
plot line of Fallout 3. But I just in general, yes, Vault-Tec as a company did not have a very good set of morals for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
they used this opportunity of having people stuck in vaults, for or die. Basically, those were their two options. They used that opportunity to run experiments of varying
Okay.
degrees of, um, from relatively mild, tame things, just little stuff like um, this group has to stay in the vault for this amount of time before they're allowed to leave. This group has to stay in there for this many hundreds of years before they're allowed to leave. Just
Okay.
small stuff like that to
Mm-hmm.
completely messed up experiments like ensuring that they wouldn't have enough food to survive the stay and to see
Right.
how they would go about it, straight poisoning people. And it
Mm-hmm.
just, again, I don't want to spoil things, but yeah, just a bunch of different kinds of experiments. And that's one of the fun things with the game is as you're exploring the world, every once in a while you will find another person from a
Mm-hmm.
vault that you've never heard of. And that just gives you more lore for kind of what they went through and what their vault was like compared to yours. And then, of course, there's also the opportunity to run across other vaults and then explore them and loot
Right.
them and see what happened in this vault, to discover what happened in this other vault. And
Right.
it's just another really interesting piece of the game.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so that's something cleared up for me that I was curious about. I didn't know if that was straight up like creepy pasta level stuff.
No.
People just kind of talking and thinking about things on the internet, or if that was actually supported in the game. Because Fallout is one of those franchises that I've been hesitant about getting into for quite some time, because it has the same kind of potentially toxic fan base that Skyrim does, and that some other random TV shows do. Like, for instance, I didn't want to watch Rick and Morty for the longest time because I saw people that watched Rick and Morty and heard people talk about Rick and Morty, and it seemed like the kind of things that they were attracted to about the show would be things that I'm not attracted to in a show. You know what I mean? So, and I feel like they got a lot of it wrong. They kind of misread, or they clung to things about the show that I personally didn't cling to, but I enjoyed a lot of other things about the show. And I feel like I'm having a similar experience with this game. I really, really enjoy the game,
Mhm.
and I did not think that I was going to enjoy it as much as I do. Because a lot of the other people that I find that play it, they just talk about, like, especially Fallout 4. They talk about like mowing people down, and they talk about their weapons that they can get, and they talk about being a sharpshooter. And specifically, my one friend loves building bases. He
Yeah,
loves
yeah.
building like
Spent way too
camps.
much time doing that. Yeah.
Right. He likes making the camps, and he likes
Mhm.
having certain attributes and certain machines and certain kinds of buildings and things inside of his camp. So he's over here using it like Minecraft, and like making camps, which I guess factor into like tower defense. I don't fully understand how
Right. Well, that's unique
that
to Fallout 4.
works.
That did not
Yeah.
exist in Fallout 3 at all. But
Okay.
yeah, no, there are predetermined areas in Fallout 4 where you can build up settlements. They're called settlements in Fallout 4. Fallout
Okay.
76 is the one that has camps,
Okay.
which are completely different, although built off of the same base. But anyways,
Okay.
in Fallout 4, yeah, there are certain areas you can build up a settlement. People can come and live inside that settlement and
Okay.
help you get more food, more water, run machines so that you can um, get extra ammo or craft this item, that item, whatever.
Hmm.
And then the tower defense thing is just obviously in a post-apocalyptic world, if there is somewhere with a bunch of food and water and other stuff that is now extremely valuable, you're going
Hmm.
to be attacked by undesirables
Gotcha.
of all sorts. So you have to build up defenses so that your settlement doesn't just get completely destroyed and everybody murdered, basically.
Right. Gotcha.
Um,
And
but again, unique to Fallout 4, though.
unique to Fallout 4. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so that's the thing. I hadn't heard about Fallout 3 in a very long time, because when
yeah,
Fallout 4 came out, it kind of took over
yeah,
everything. Everybody was playing Fallout 4. Everyone I knew was playing Fallout 4 anyway.
yeah.
Even
I
people
mean,
that wouldn't typically be fan of what I thought, surface level, judging a book by its cover, Fallout 4 was. People that are usually playing indie games or um, really obscure Japanese RPGs uh, were playing Fallout 4. So that was something pretty cool that I would have gotten into if I had the access to at the time, and I'm glad that I do now, because I'm really into this game. I'm very much into it. I love how heavy it is on the RPG stuff, considering how light I thought it was going to be. Using that for comparison, I can
yeah,
understand.
yeah.
I can understand how people are like, no, it's not. It's not RPG. It's an action game. I get that. I know. But
I mean,
for
I
me,
personally think that
the
Fallout 3 is still an
uninitiated,
excellent RPG. To be
right?
honest, like,
For me, the uninitiated, the person that does not play RPGs, I am most used to games like Super Mario Brothers. That
mhm,
that is what I am most used to. I'm most used to side scrollers or 3D action platformers.
right,
Platformers are my wheelhouse. That's where I grew up. That's where I feel the most comfortable. I can understand the mechanics of a platform and talk about them all day. So that was the point of this podcast, guys. The entire point of this podcast was for Christian to play through his exhaustive backlog catalog of games, and for me to expand my horizons and play these games that I've always been curious about and that I've always wanted to play, but I've never gotten the opportunity to because I'm always so overwhelmed and I have so much anxiety about trying to break into this, because there's even Christian's library, which is a small sampling of the games available to play. Christian has over 1,000 games, and
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Well,
So
and it wasn't just for you though. Like this podcast
no,
also helps me pick out what I actually want to play because
right.
there's the whole I forget the technical name for it, but there's a thing when there are too many choices to where us as humans just tend to either not make a choice or just pick something that we've already picked a million times instead of trying
Oversaturation.
something new. Yeah. So this also helps me play some of the stuff that I've never even touched and just be like, okay, is this actually worth playing or is this not worth playing? And then, of
Right.
course, we can also help you guys out because if you watch the show and realize that your tastes are very similar to mine or very similar to John's, then
Hmm.
you can now be like, okay, well, Christian liked this game, so I may like this game as well. And then you can pick it up and try it, or vice versa. My tastes are very similar to John's. He liked this game. Maybe I'll try it
Hmm.
out. Um,
Right.
so yeah, really, it's really for us as much as it is everybody else.
Oh my God, Christian, can we get the t-shirts made up? Team Christian, Team John.
uh,
Oh no. Uh,
maybe someday. Maybe someday.
Millennial jokes. Some of
Millennial
you are
jokes.
potentially too young to understand what that means.
Anyways,
uh, oh,
but
oh
yeah.
no.
So I mean, I'm really glad you enjoyed it, and I'm excited to play more
Yeah.
Bethesda games. But
Hmm.
also, I think just hearing you talk about Fallout 3, the thing I'm most
Uh,
excited for is to have you play Fallout New Vegas. Because
okay.
Fallout New Vegas is made in Bethesda's game engine, the Creation Engine, and
Okay.
uses like almost the exact same assets from Fallout 3, but they
Okay.
handed all of that out to the developers that originally created Fallout.
Okay.
They handed all of that stuff to them and was like, okay, now you have the opportunity to make one of these new style Fallout games. And
Okay.
so review score wise, it didn't do as well as Fallout 3 did, but it
Uh-huh.
has a much larger following, I feel like, or at least a much more vocal following than
I've
Fallout 3
heard
does.
I've heard that. I've heard
Yeah,
of Fallout New Vegas
yeah,
having like kind of a being kind of a fan favorite.
yeah.
Like I've heard of people talk about it. How do I want to say it in a similar way to like people that defend. Oh, I don't really know what it is, but people defend it and sort of yell at other people for liking like Fallout 4
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Fallout
exactly. I mean, that's
76
honestly
because they're like
you hit the
yeah
nail on the
yeah
head, man.
they're like
And
this is real Fallout.
I mean,
That's new stuff.
and personally, I prefer 3 to Fallout New
Uh,
Vegas.
okay.
And I get into arguments with people all the time because so many people just really, like you said, love to shout how much better New Vegas is than 3. And I
Right.
do agree that from a mechanics standpoint, they improved a lot in New
Okay.
Vegas. But
Yeah.
there's something about the world that Bethesda builds that to me is just special and that
Okay.
no other company has been able to match. So I'm just interested to
Okay.
see kind of what you'll feel if you'll enjoy the mechanics and whatnot more in Fallout New Vegas to the point to where you actually think that's the better game, or if you
Okay.
enjoy the world so much in 3 or New Vegas that you pick one or the other, whatever the case may be. But I hope you'll play more Fallout 3 so that you actually get more of a feel for the world because the vault is
I
such a tiny, tiny piece of the
It
world
is.
as a
Yeah.
whole.
But it is hands down the best tutorial I've ever played.
Yeah, it's up there.
Other than I will say a very close rival, if not beating it slightly, is the tutorial in the remake of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2.
I haven't got to play that yet. I need to. I need to pick it up and play it soon.
I
But
loved that tutorial. I thought that it was perfect. I felt like it didn't really hold your hand, but it was a training video. It felt like you were being trained
oh,
to
nice.
skateboard and you were like learning how to do all these tricks, but even more than that, you were learning the theory behind the trick and how it relates to other ones so that
Mhm.
you can more effectively combo tricks and get points and experience.
Okay.
So I was very happy about that.
Um.
Um, that
So
was
this
good.
video
That was
is
good stuff.
starting to run a little bit long, so we're gonna start wrapping it up. But just real quick before we go, I made
Uh-huh.
the same point in the Fallout 1 video, but
Okay.
I just wanted to say again that there's also just something very special to me about the way the Fallout universe mashes that 1950s feel with future tech, and then
Mm-hmm.
having that old music from the real world playing in the background and whatnot. And
Yeah, yeah.
there's always something about just, exploring the world, doing whatever it is you're doing, whether you're going on a murderous rampage, or stealing
Right.
everything you possibly can, or whether you're genuinely trying to help people and be a good person. But
Right.
all the while just having these, I don't know what to call them exactly. I mean, music from the 1950s is what I'm trying to say, but I don't know.
Yeah.
There's just something kind of haunting about it almost, walking around this post apocalyptic world with
Yeah.
music from the 50s. And
Yeah.
there's just something so special about that to me. And
Mm-hmm.
I also get emotional sometimes playing these games, seeing all
Really?
of the effects that the nuclear war had on the world, right? Um,
Right.
things like a slight trigger warning, I guess, but things like children, the skeletons of
Right.
children nestled up against their parents in a bed, and
Oh, yeah.
just
Yeah, yeah,
skeletons,
yeah.
nothing left to them, or teddy bears being grasped in their arms, things like that. It's just very. It also makes a statement about the world as it is, and there's just something very special about that to me. And I think Fallout will always be one of my favorite franchises, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
large part of it, um, right there. So
Gotcha. Oh yeah, that's that. I mean, that's kind of a heavier note, but yeah, I mean, I haven't really gotten to that part in the game,
yeah,
but it is that is something to think about. I never really thought about that part of it before, but that is something. Um, so how do you play these games? Do you play a more violent? I killed the overseer. I didn't
I
know
did
I
not.
wasn't. I didn't know
I've
I wasn't
played
supposed to,
I've played
and
through
then
these games so many times. So fun fact, I actually played this game about 5 or 6 times before I beat it. And
Mhm.
by played the game, I don't mean like turned it on. I mean put like at least 50 to 100 hours each playthrough in before
Okay,
I eventually decided to do a playthrough where I actually beat it. So I have literal hundreds of hours into Fallout 3.
right.
Um, and each time I play it, I tend to play it a little bit differently. So it's not
Okay.
just more of the same. But
Mhm.
generally speaking, I'm a good guy.
Mhm.
As in, like, I don't kill innocent people or anything like that. I'm moral. My moral compass usually points towards the good side in the game, but I
Right.
do tend to steal stuff and pick up like everything I can. um,
Right. Yeah.
and I'm just kind of a pack rat in video games in general, so that's kind of how I play.
Yeah.
But I've in
Same.
these games I've never. It's not like the GTA stuff where in these games I tend to just randomly go on murderous rampage. That's pretty
Yeah.
rare.
Yeah.
I have tried it before. There's
Mhm.
a option that you get very early in the game to whether you blow up an entire town or save an entire town essentially,
Wow.
or just do nothing. Um,
Okay.
so I've only ever done one playthrough where I've blown up the entire town, just as an example. So
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I mean, that is very interesting. The game that I can most relate this to for me personally is Knights of the Old Republic.
yeah, okay,
Um,
I can see
it
why.
it
Yeah,
it, it reminds me of that, but it's much more you move around more.
yeah,
In this game, you have a lot more control over your character. Knights of the Old Republic is much more
stiff.
RPG.
Yeah,
Yeah, than this game. You're not a lot not very action heavy in Knights of the Old Republic. You pick all of your moves and then they act out pre-rendered
yeah, yeah.
animations. Um, that's how that game's played. But similar like stats and skills and
Right,
different things like
right.
that, but all related to Star Wars. So you have force powers and different things like that. But for Star Wars, actually, um, very specifically lines up your light side and your dark side.
Mm.
So depending on your actions and your conversations in the game, gives you light side points or dark side points.
Yeah, and you get the same
In
sort of
addition to
thing in this
XP and
game as
things.
well.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, it's not
It's
called
just
light
not
side, dark
visible.
side, but I know there is. If you go into your Pip Boy, you can see how you align, um,
Oh, okay.
morally. So That is a thing,
Okay.
and it unlocks like new characters that you can get as companions. Will only
Hmm.
join you if you're like a certain level of good or a certain level of bad, and different things like that. It doesn't play a major
Okay.
role in the game most of the time, but it is a
Okay.
thing in this game as well.
Gotcha. Well, that's definitely interesting.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, but I loved it. I want to play more. I would play just one more level of Fallout 3. In fact, I intend to. I would like to do that before I play New Vegas.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not. I would like to at least play more of it. I don't know about beating it because if you're logging 50 hours into this bad boy and you didn't even beat it, um,
It's not
I
because I
don't
couldn't have.
know.
Though to be fair, Fallout 3 is
Okay,
actually pretty short. If
really?
you
If
if you
you
beeline the main storyline, you could easily
okay,
beat it in that 50 hours less time, even to be
okay,
honest. It's
okay,
just there's so much to explore and do if you
right,
choose to, and
right,
I
yeah,
chose to.
gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not sure how far I'd get into it. I might look up like a guide to get the most out of it in a shorter amount of time. Just for the purposes of what we're doing. Not because I wouldn't want to relax and enjoy it, but just for the purposes of what we're doing. Wanting
Yeah,
to
I
move
mean, I
along
wouldn't suggest
and
it
play New Vegas or
personally
something.
because you can, without looking at a guide, you can see what's like your main quest line and what's not your main quest line.
Oh,
So if
okay.
you're just wanting to
That'll
get
be
through the
fine then.
story more quickly, I would just stick to the
Right.
main quest line unless there's something that really piques your interest. And then,
Gotcha.
you can go off and do that sort of thing. So
Okay.
I would hate to have anything spoiled for you because you decided to look at a guide to help speed you along. That's all.
That's true.
But
That's true.
yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, I don't want that. I want to avoid that. And I'm so excited, Christian. I'm so eager to see what happens in your video footage here about what happens when you don't kill the overseer.
Right.
Does she go with you?
She does not.
She doesn't. She never
She
goes.
does not.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it doesn't
She
even
doesn't go with you.
matter. I made her hate me for no reason, and
Yeah.
and I didn't even realize it was him that I was fighting. I thought it was just some guy. Like I didn't
Oh,
even
jeez.
know. So I'm just, and I ran out of bullets too. So I really went at him with the bat, and I was, it
That's
was
terrible.
bad. Oh
Oh,
no.
jeez.
And she just stood there and cried, and she wouldn't talk to me, but she still shows up for this scene for
Yeah.
some reason.
Yeah.
Like she still shows up there,
It's a
and
scripted thing. She always shows
yeah,
up. Yeah.
and she yelled at me about it. She told me that she couldn't even look at me, and I walked out of the vault, hanging my head in shame. And she doesn't. There's no scenario where she goes with you.
No. No
There's
scenario where
none.
she comes with you. Now you do eventually get to come back to the vault if you choose to, and your
Okay.
dialogue and things is a little bit different depending on what you do. You know. So like it does make changes, but it's relatively small changes to be honest with you. And that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people didn't like in this game compared to some of the other Fallouts was some of your choices didn't seem to have that big of an impact. But at the
Hmm.
same time, I would argue that you can blow up an entire town, so your choices have
Right.
a little bit of impact. But anyways, we're
Gotcha.
getting into argument and fan flaming stuff and whatnot, so it's just
Okay.
yeah. But again, this episode's running a little bit long, so I would definitely play just one more level as well. I think I've said
Hmm.
just about everything that I need to say about the game.
Yeah.
I
Same.
definitely plan
Same.
on playing it again. Once you add
Hmm.
mods and stuff into it, you could play this game for the rest of your life, and I don't think you would really get that bored of it. So,
Well,
yeah.
okay.
But,
Well,
all right.
okay. I
Unless
gotcha.
John has anything else, I think that's it for
I know.
Fallout 3.
Yeah, that's it. That's it for Fallout Free. Fallout Free.
Fallout 3.
Fallout Free. Ladies and
Thank you
gentlemen.
so much, everyone, for joining us.
Yes.
We hope to see
Yes.
you again next week.
Yes.
And this Friday as well, because this Friday we'll be covering Super Mario Brothers. So make sure you
Yes.
check that out.
I don't know if that lines up just right. It might. Super
Oh,
Mario
Little
Brothers might
Nightmares
be
this week,
later.
and then
Yes,
Super Mario
Little
Brothers
Nightmares
next week.
this
Yeah,
week.
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Which is
Whatever. Point is, another
we
video
did.
Friday. Check it out.
Yes. Thank you so much for watching, and you didn't have to, but you do, and we appreciate it.
Didn't have
Trying
to,
to
but
wrap
you
this up
do.
quick.
We're
You can
screwing
find
this
us.
all up.
You can find it. You can find it. You can find us down in the description. Below the video, go look down,
Jeez.
scroll down a little bit in the comments, not
Yep.
the comments, the description. All of our links,
This.
both personal and for the podcast. please go check us out and support us. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody so much for watching, and bye-bye everybody.
Yeah, we need to end this.
Bye.
Bye-bye.